Please welcome Kamran Aftab and Jack Saint.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Kamran Aftab from Nidec Motor, and I have my colleague Jack Saint here with me. So a little bit about Nidec. Nidec, most of you have probably not heard about it. The Nidec Corporation is headquartered in Kyoto, Japan. It's the world's largest comprehensive motor manufacturer. Everything that spins and moves is fair game for our motors and actuators. Nidec comprises of over 300 companies and over 100,000 employees all across the world. Our motors can be found in industrial as well as consumer products. In 2010, Emerson Electric Motor Company was acquired by Nidec to form Nidec Motor Corporation USA, that's based in St. Louis. And in 2017, Leroy Samer, which is a European, France-based motor manufacturer, was acquired, and that established our operations in Europe. As you can see, motors are found in pretty much everything where a motor can be used. And the reason most of you have probably never heard of it because a lot of our motors are private labeled, so they're manufactured by Nidec, and then a label is put on for the OEM where it's used. We have engineering offices in many different locations in the world, in Europe, India, Mexico, United States. So our system caters to all these engineering offices. When the system was architected, there were certain business needs when it comes to files, CAD files specifically. We have locations around the world. So one of the concerns was the speed of uploads and downloads. And this concern was only for files. Application performance is acceptable otherwise. Another need was that we put this system in place for three main businesses. And thinking about the future, instead of thinking, okay, maybe we can merge them into one, we started with the merge system, and set it up in a way that it could be split easier if it didn't work out. And then there was a security concern as well, where the U.S. Defense data is not exposed or accessible to anyone else who should not have access to it. One of our businesses in the U.S. deals with the defense data as well as commercial at the same time. And then there's also a French defense data, which they never really end up putting it into the system because of concerns that you can't separate the systems based on for different admins basically. So if you have admin from one country, someone would have to have access to all of the system. This is a high-level architecture of our application. We have on the left there is the main application with the application server, the database server, conversion server, all based in the US. On the right side, next to it, we have what we call main vaults. Next to it, those are located in the US. Then we have the secure vault, which contains the US defense data. That's also in the US, obviously. And then the rest of those in the pink shape are what we call replicated servers. And we're going to talk a little bit more about these replicated servers versus main servers. On the bottom left, you see some integrated applications that we get data from our PLM system, mostly through web interfaces. And then we also have some data extracts that are sent to Oracle and some applications that are built on FileMaker Pro. A vault architecture, just a closer look. We have, again, the US users, their preferred vault is what we call the main vaults. We have 3 vault servers on this single machine. Then we have the secured vault, which is outside of the cloud on-prem. And then the various replicated vaults on location or close to the location of where the users are. Those are those users' preferred vaults. And preferred vault means where when a user creates a file, it gets saved into that vault by default. When the system was architected, we also, I mentioned about splitting. So we also had some considerations for that. And then, split we did, of course. There were several drivers for that. Security restrictions made it difficult for non-citizen admins. So everything had to go through a couple of admins who had to then implement everything and review everything. And then changes were very slow to implement because of the extensive reviews that were required to make sure there is no opportunity of exposing secure data. So the instance was split into 2, with one business taking their stuff and the other 2 staying in the one split. So basically, the database split into, not really split, but another copy made of the database. So both of the database were exactly same at that time. With the way we had the file servers, we had 3 main file servers. One belonged to that one business, and they just took it with them. So instead of taking all the files, if we had a single vault, which would be about 3.5 terabytes, they just took their part, which is, I think, less than a terabyte. The data cleanup, however, is a more complex process, and it's an ongoing effort. So what that refers to is basically getting rid of all that data that points to those files that are not there anymore. So in one instance, this is all the data that belongs to that single US business, which the files are not there anymore, so it's just pointing to nothing. And then vice versa on the other side. So our this slide shows our BART locations. On the left side, you can see that we have these VART servers aligned with our businesses. So China, Czech Republic, a bunch in France, a couple in India, and then Romania, and then US. There was also one in Mexico, which I think we removed eventually. You can see the couple groupings in there. The light green shows two VART servers. Those are on the single machine. And then the light purple, all three of those are on a single machine. So the idea is to separate the VARTs by business. Again, if for whatever reason the business separates, they can take their file data easily. So we have 14 physical machines and 18 VARTs on them. There were some business rules related to the BART servers that were observed while architecting this system. The first one is that all files that are created on what we call the replicated VARTs need to be copied to one of the main VARTs. Again, depending on which business that location belongs to, it would be copied back to one of the to the respective main VART. Files would be copied. Files that are created on the main VART would be copied or replicated to the local vaults or replicated vaults on demand, which means that when a user accesses a file that is on one of the main vaults, first time it opens from the main vault, but then it gets replicated to the users, not really users, but actually it's defined in the replication rules, and I'll go over that. It copies based on the user's group to the vault that's relative to that group or relevant to that group. Files can also be copied between file servers or replicated servers, and that's based on specific business rules. So if there's groups that work together or collaborate, their files could be copied between the replicated servers. And of course, no replication to or from the secure vault. This slide shows one of our main vaults, and I'm just going to go over the replication rules over here. On the left, you see a bunch of replication rules, which basically say that anyone belonging to one of those groups on the left side, if they create or change any files, if they access any files from this main server, then that file would be replicated to their respective vault. So the first one there is for SIEC. So if anyone belongs to that group, the files they access will be copied to the SIEC vault as shown on the bottom right over there. Here's an example of a replication rule for a replicated vault. So I have been using these terms, main vaults and replicated vaults. As far as Aras is concerned, there is no such thing as a main vault or replicated vault. These are just differentiations based on business rules. All vaults are equal in the eyes of Aras. So when we say replicated vault, it's just based on our business rules. It's a vault that is where not everything is backed up. So that first rule, where you see the word as the entity, all replicated vaults have that rule, which says that whenever anyone in the system creates or changes any files, they get copied to one of the main vaults. And on the right, you can see in the bottom, it's the LSRO vault, that this particular vault, which is in Romania, whenever this one, anything changes on this one. And I'm going to go through the second one in the next slide. But I also wanted to go over this red box in here. That's the replication mode, and there's various modes there. There's immediate, where the file is copied, or the replication job is created as soon as the file is changed or created. The next one is delayed, where you give it a time to, I think the idea is there that you collect all the changes and make a single replication, as opposed to doing the replications every time someone says it. And then the CAD programmers or the CAD users among us probably know what I'm talking about, because we used to save very often. The schedule is where you set up a time, maybe in the middle of the night, where you want to replicate all the files. And then the manual refers to programmatic creation of a replication task. So on the top right, you can see a filter method. So if you are using a method to kick it off, that's where that comes in. So then the second one of those rules, this is an example of copying files between replicated vaults. So in this case, it's saying that if someone from the LS group, GP Motors, creates or changes a file, not only by the first rule, it gets copied to the main vault, it also gets copied to the CX vault that's shown on the bottom right there. And then the right box over there shows the different triggers for replication that can be set for the rule. There's the on demand that we talked about, where the user accesses a file. There's on change, where a file is created or saved or changed. And then on event refers again to the programmatic creation of replication. This slide shows the system configuration, the application, database. I'm just going to go over the vaults here. So the main vault has 8 CPUs, 60 gigabyte RAM, and 5 terabytes hard drive. We filled it about maybe 2.5 terabytes in, let's say, the last 10 years between the two businesses. And then we have the conversion server, and then the replication servers. They span from anywhere from a single CPU to 8 CPUs, and from 100 gigabytes to 500 gigabytes. There's this variability between the configuration of the replicated servers because they are owned by the individual businesses, and it's up to them as to what configuration they want to set those up. We haven't really received any complaints about any bottlenecks in these, even with the single CPU. So that's the end of the slides, and I'll welcome Jack here to join with me. If you have any questions, please post them in the Q&A section, and we'll try to answer them.
Thanks, Cameron. We have a few questions that have come in, so let's see if we can get to them. One of them is regarding performance. And the question is, how is performance like with the replicated vaults, and is performance in India on the Indian vault the same as the US users on the US vaults?
So unfortunately, I could not gather that data. I had that in mind, but I was not able to gather the data. This system was architected a while ago. There were some studies done at that point in time, but they got lost, I think, in the turnover of the people who were involved in the beginning. Again, we haven't heard any complaints, so we're hoping everything works at least acceptably well.
Yeah, if it helps anecdotally, I've heard from the Chinese users that there's no performance issues there. So when they retrieve from the vault in China, so I imagine it's going to be similar to India. There's another question that came in. For scheduled replications, which server time does the rule follow? In other words, does it follow the main server time in St. Louis, or does it follow the server time at the other locations, is what I assume the question is.
It would follow. I mean, we don't have any schedule. We don't do the schedule, but I'm pretty sure it would follow the main application server's time, because that's where the replication jobs are created.
Okay, it says, do you have the replication rule set to immediate and on change for all of your replicated vaults?
We have both. We have immediate on demand, and the on change ones. Some of them have delayed execution. And again, the idea is that when someone is, let's say, working on a CAD assembly and they have, 15, 20 different files, and they, modifying them, you don't want to create a replication task every time they hit the save key. So we have about 100 minutes, I think, delay that we have put in there. So we collect all those changes and then kick off a single replication every 100 minutes, let's say.
Yeah, you were explaining to me once that the mechanical engineers that are working on a CAD file for 2 or 3 hours, you don't want to keep saving their changes, because they do it every 5 minutes. You want to keep replicating. So we put that delay in for that.
Yeah, it reminds me, in one of the CAD training sessions I was involved in, there was a big sign that said, "Save often, save now," because the CAD stations used to crash. At least in those days, they used to crash very often.
So another question came in. What are the considerations we took into account when we moved off of the ITAR or the defense, U.S. defense, to a separate instance? And you already covered some of those. I'll add in that you and I and the IT administrator for the defense site from Nidec went to ACE 2019, and we had good conversations with a number of people, including Peter Schroer and Rob McEnany and a number of consultants who all, helped advise us to split, not only because of security, but also because of ease of implementation of features and functions on the other side that no longer had to go through the audits of the ITAR folks. And I also know from talking with the ITAR administrator that the audits can be extensive, at least on the U.S. side. So when we anticipated going to France with potential French data, the same considerations came into play. And you can split instances and have 500 users on one instance and 500 users on the other, and still pay your 1,000 user subscription fee. So, there's a little consolidation work that we do there, but we're totally able to do that. The only downside, I would say, is that we have to have separate administrators, and we're in the middle of an upgrade to Aras 12, and the other side now is maybe not there yet. Not that matters, but it means we're going to be on 2 different instances of Innovator and 2 different versions as well. Let me see if there's any more questions here. How has performance impacted the replication design?
Or vice versa. I'm not sure if the question is whether the replication affected the performance or the performance affected the replication. So the replication actually happens on the conversion server. So we have a separate machine for that. So it does not affect our application performance. if that was the question.
Came in that it's from another user who says, do you still need an international admin who can update those vault replication rules for each of the system instances, or are the rules controlled in one instance?
So the rules are all controlled by our main admin team, and because they affect the replicated vaults as well as the main system or the main vault. So they're controlled from our controlled by our main admin team. We have a support team that's in India that works with us for the day-to-day support, and then we have a couple people here in the US, and we make the rules basically.
And just to add on to that, our instances that were split have different admins and different replication rules that are controlled. So when we split off the instance to our defense team, they have their own administrator and their own set of replication rules, and they don't really replicate anything out of, or they typically don't replicate defense designs off of that system. So they're controlled and they're in their own instance. And yeah, so we had to have separate admins for the two instances. Another question just came in. If the files are not replicated into or from the secure vault, how do the files get added to that vault?
So that vault is the preferred vault for the users who are adding the data. So it just goes directly to that vault. So again, the vault is a vault, right? All vaults are equal, so you can set up any vault as the preferred vault for any of the users. So they just get saved directly to that vault without any application. So that would be the main vault in that case.
Okay, I think we've gone through most of the questions, but people can continue to add questions, and we will respond to them on email. And thanks again for your time, and thank you, Cameron, for a great job presenting.
Thank you.
So I think we're going to wrap it here and have fun the rest of the conference.